welcome to the deep dive. Get ready, because we're going right to the spark, the very first flicker of what would become the band Saturday.
Yeah, we've got this exclusive look, right, from the early chapters of Saturday, the good and the bad times, a story of four.
Exactly. And can you imagine it? Four teenagers, like totally different world, each doing their own thing, and they're just unknowingly hurtling towards each other, towards this collision that changes everything.
It's amazing. And this deep dive, it's really all about those, raw foundational years. For John, Angel, who we know as Reece, of course, Ruben, and Zach.
Before the fame.
Totally before the fame, before the big shows. We're talking teenage dreams, the personal battles, and those first almost accidental meetings that kind of set the stage for Saturday.
And the book promises this really raw honesty, doesn't it? The editor's note even mentions how incredibly open these guys are being.
Yeah, sharing vulnerabilities, the pressures, the sacrifices, stuff that shaped them, even hinting at the complex relationship they'd have later with the industry itself.
Which is pretty compelling when you think about that polished band image,
It really is. So our mission here is to really get into the individual worlds of these four guys as they all arrive at the Sona Arts Retreat, this pivotal summer.
The summer that changes everything, even if they don't know it yet.
Exactly. We want to explore their unique situations, what was driving them, and those first little moments of connection. What were they hoping for? What were they carrying, underneath? What did those first encounters actually mean?
Okay, let's dive in. John Braxton first, 15, and basically LA music royalty.
Right. His mom, Simone Braxton, a huge name, and his dad, Bradley Goff Braxton, president of Chorus Productions. I mean, this kid's life was almost pre-written for the spotlight.
Yeah, but not your typical teenage life. Not at all.
No way. Forget summer camp crafts. Think intense music boot camps, serious vocal coaching, stage presence training, non-stop.
And even just packing for this retreat, it shows this inner conflict, doesn't it?
Totally. He's packing, and he's caught between these two potential images. The clothes tell the story, youth pop prodigy versus this more sensitive indie soul.
It's that classic struggle, isn't it? Who they expect you to be versus who you really are.
Definitely. And you get this really kind of sad glimpse into his relationship with his dad, always busy, always industry stuff. Doesn't even call before John leaves for camp.
Oof. You can almost feel John just wanting that connection.
Right?
Some sign his dad sees him, not just the future star. Makes you wonder how that affected him.
Absolutely. And what's really interesting, despite this very secular industry-focused world he's in, there's this quiet faith.
Yeah, I noticed that. He's praying.
But not for fame, which probably feels inevitable to him anyway. He's praying for peace, for real connection, for answers. It's such a contrast to that manufactured pop star image. Shows there's something deeper going on.
Okay, then Reece Angel James fan. 14. Also LA, but just boom, an explosion of energy.
Oh yeah, the book paints him putting on a whole show while he's packing. Suitcase is his stage, hairbrush microphone, belting out pop songs, just pure drama.
He's a performer through and through.
Born that way, seems like. Even packing is theater. But, underneath all that flash, there's vulnerability.
His mom, Helen, she voices those concerns, right? About how tough the industry really is.
Yeah, a bit of a reality check against his big dreams. And we find out he's always felt kind of different, got mocked for being, too small, too dramatic, too feminine.
That's rough, especially for a kid.
It really is. Highlights how hard it can be just to be yourself when you're young.
And that quiet moment where he just looks up at the ceiling, silently pleading.
Yeah.
Just wanting to prove himself. It says so much.
Yeah, that need for validation. It's powerful.
Okay, next up. Ruben Montez, also 14, LA via Madrid. Another kid in the spotlight, but a different kind.
Totally different flavor. Meticulously managed by his mom, Veronica Montez, former beauty queen, now a big TV sales star.
So for Ruben, everything feels like a performance, even at home, under her constant watch.
You can just feel that pressure. Always be excellent, always be on.
And that phone call from his dad, it feels like such a lifeline, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. A moment of comfort. A totally different perspective from his mom's demands. When his dad says, don't let everything she says get into your heart. Wow.
That really hits home, highlights that conflict, Parental ambition versus maybe what the kid actually needs.
Exactly. Mom pushing the image, dad offering that quiet reassurance, acknowledging the person underneath.
And Ruben just wants someone to see the real him. It's that same underlying thing we saw with John and Reece, isn't it? That need to be seen for who you are.
It seems to be a theme, yeah. That deep yearning.
Okay, finally, Zachary Knight, 15. Portland, Oregon. So not LA.
Complete change of scenery. Modest apartment, single mom who works hard. Dad left when he was like 8.
And for Zach, music isn't this mapped out career. It's his escape, right? His
Yeah.
personal space.
Exactly. His refuge. He taught himself piano, guitar, finds his voice there. The quietness described in his apartment, it really emphasizes that longing for connection.
A real contrast to the buzz around the other guys.
Totally. Even his text chat with his mom before he leaves, it's just quiet, solid encouragement, that shared understanding.
He's nervous about the camp, which makes sense.
Yeah, understandably. But his hope is pretty simple, really. Just find someone who gets him, musically, personally, someone who understands.
So these 4 very different kids carrying all this baggage, all these hopes, they all arrive at Sona Arts Retreat.
Right. And the narrative shifts. We start seeing those first, maybe crucial encounters.
The retreat itself sounds pretty prestigious. Recording Academy connection, those golden gramophone banners everywhere.
Oh, yeah, it signals big deal right away. And for Ruben, his arrival is still kind of dominated by his mom. She even tells him specifically, connect with John Braxton.
Wow, no pressure.
Right. Their first interaction is super polite, cautious almost, but you can sense they kind of get each other's world, the pressures.
And then Reece arrives. Total whirlwind.
Full energy mode. His mom's there, looking nervous, wishing him well. Such a contrast to his confidence.
Meanwhile, Zach's arrival is way quieter, more solitary.
But that little chat he has with his rideshare driver, that feels important.
If you've got something real, they'll feel it. Yeah, that line sticks with you, like a little piece of encouragement just for him.
It does. Feels like foreshadowing, maybe. And then you get that first little interaction between Zach and Reece. Zach struggling with his bags.
And Reece making his grand entrance.
Yeah. And that quick exchange. Nice entrance. Yours too. At least we're not boring. It's so casual, but it hints at something, right? A shared spark of not being totally conventional.
Then the welcome event. Director Meredith Crane talking about transformation. The video montage of successful alumni, setting the stakes high.
Definitely. And seeing how they each react is fascinating. John's quiet, maybe a bit cynical about the industry hype.
Reece is just soaking it all up, beamy.
Ruben's putting on that calm, confident face, playing the part.
And Zach, just observing. Introspective. Seems more focused on the music than the show around it.
And then the cabin assignments. That's where things get interesting. Forced proximity.
John and Ruben together in cabin 6. Reece and Zach in cabin 12.
Those first moments in the cabins are so telling. John and Ruben start talking cautiously, find they actually have stuff in common, songwriting Hamilton.
John knew Lin-Manuel Miranda, briefly.
Yeah, little connection there. But more importantly, they connect over feeling like puppets sometimes, controlled by expectations, even though their situations are different.
That's a powerful connection to make early on. And cabin 12.
Total contrast, right. Reece bursts in, dramatic as ever. Zach's just kind of watching him, taking it in.
Their first chat about music tastes. Reece is into, like, early 2000s pop with an edge.
Yeah, well, Zach's more about guitar, piano, grounded stuff. But even in the contrast, you sense this potential dynamic. Maybe their differences could work together.
Okay, first evening. The welcome reception. What happens there?
Well, John gets noticed immediately. Braxton name, right? Aspiring industry types flock to him. Shows that built-in advantage.
And Ruben, you'd think he'd be comfortable growing up in the spotlight.
Nope. He feels awkward in the crowd, has that slightly cringy encounter with Amelia, the visual blog girl. It really shows that gap between his public persona and how he actually feels.
Interesting. And Reece.
Reece is working the room, confidently walks up to Jayla and Noel. Connects instantly with Jayla humor, real interaction. He seems much more comfortable navigating it all.
And while all that's happening,
Yeah.
Ruben escapes the noise,
Yeah.
goes to the garden.
Yeah, seeking quiet. And that's where he has that moment with Zach. No words spoken.
Just shared silence.
Exactly. A fleeting sense of connection away from the crowd. Sometimes silence says more, you know?
That silent moment feels really significant, doesn't it? Like an unspoken understanding.
It really does, like acknowledging something deeper without needing words. So day 1 starts, and you see these dynamics developing more.
Breakfast reveals their different styles, right?
Yeah. Sleep habits, how they cope. Ruben admits he kind of fakes confidence until something works, which says a lot about the pressure he's under. Very different from John's quiet reserve.
And the vocal masterclass with Ivo. That sounds like a big moment.
Huge! Especially Zach's performance of Creep. Unexpectedly raw, powerful. It apparently just silenced the room.
And it really hit Ruben hard.
Yeah, the book makes a point of that. Noelle even notices Ruben's reaction. It's like Zach's talent just cut through everything, changed Ruben's perception.
So that art can do that, right?
Yeah.
Break down barriers.
Absolutely. And then Ruben gets paired with Noel for the songwriting workshop. Random pairing, but turns out to be really important for Ruben.
How so?
Noelle's just gentle, encourages Ruben to be honest in his writing. And Noel is open about being out himself.
Look, it's a safe space.
Totally. Allows Ruben to start, maybe for the first time, exploring feelings he hasn't voiced. And he develops this little crush on Noel. It feels very natural, tied to feeling accepted.
That makes sense. Finding someone supportive when you're figuring things out is huge.
Definitely. And while all this is going on, John has this quiet moment, makes a purple Post-it note for Ruben.
Purple. What's that about?
Just seems like a symbol for John. Budding friendship, maybe? Positive intentions. A small gesture. But it says a lot about John wanting real connection.
Okay, day 2. Things are deepening. Bonds forming.
Yeah, Reece and Zach are getting more comfortable, that easy banter between them. And John and Ruben find more common ground music, feeling like they don't quite fit the mold. John shares his love for Broadway. Dear Evan Hansen.
Another unexpected connection point.
Right. Shows how diverse tastes can still bring people together, but it's not all smooth sailing.
Uh-oh. What happens?
Zach has this run-in with those LA boys again. Really highlights the social cliques, maybe some class stuff bubbling up.
That's rough. How does Reece react?
Reece jumps right in, offers to back Zach up, no hesitation, really cements their bond, shows Reece's loyalty.
Good for Reece. And what about him and Jayla?
Things seem comfortable there. A quiet understanding developing, shared moments, creative vibes. Easy.
And John? Still reflecting.
Yeah, his prayer notes get longer, praying about his dad, for kindness, for his own authenticity. You see him searching, growing internally.
And then the big moment. They get grouped together.
Unexpectedly, yeah. For a cappella session, John, Ruben, Zach, Reece talk about different energies in one group.
Must have been awkward at first.
Apparently. But then they start working on Alesso's Heroes, stripped down, and something just clicks. Surprising musical chemistry.
Wait.
Even the instructor is impressed, gives them that external validation, like, hey, maybe this weird mix actually works. None of them saw it coming.
Okay, so the music clicked, but then romance drama.
Subtle hints start emerging. Harper, another camper, is clearly interested in Zach after the session. He kind of tentatively agrees to go to this unofficial Saturday party she mentions.
How does everyone else react?
Reece teases Zach about it, playfully. Zach's pretty understated, as usual. But Ruben sees this interaction, Zach and Harper, and he looks visibly uncomfortable.
Interesting. Why do you think?
Hard to say exactly from the text, but it adds this layer of complexity. Unspoken feelings starting to get tangled.
Okay, the unofficial party in an abandoned theater. Sounds dramatic.
Very secretive, charged atmosphere. You feel like things are going to happen.
How do the guys approach it?
John and Ruben are a bit hesitant arriving. Reece and Zach seem more ready to just jump in.
What's the vibe?
Pulsing music, makeshift lights, teenagers trying to act older, testing boundaries, classic party scene. But then the mood shifts.
Those LA boys again.
Yeah. First, they mock Zach. Then they turn on Reece, using horrible homophobic slurs. Just awful.
God, that's terrible. What happens?
Jayla doesn't hesitate, fiercely defends Reece. It's a really powerful moment of allyship.
Good for her.
Afterwards, Jayla and Reece have this quiet moment outside, under the stars, healing, connecting. And they share their first kiss. It feels really earned after what they just went through.
A sweet moment amidst the ugliness. But what about Ruben?
He sees Zach laughing with Harper, and it triggers that negative feeling again, like jealousy, maybe. Or something he can't quite name.
So much swirling emotion.
Totally. And then Ruben connects with Noel on the dance floor. Leads to a quieter moment, away from the noise. And Ruben has his first kiss with a boy. It's described as liberating, affirming for him.
Wow. Big night for Ruben.
Huge. And John's off in his own corner, has a quiet conversation and a kiss with someone else too. Lots happening.
And Zach, he kissed Harper.
Yeah. Described as nice, easy, but then he looks over towards Ruben. That lingering glance. It says everything, doesn't it? Suggests his feelings might be directed elsewhere, even if he doesn't realize it yet.
The morning after must have been intense.
Oh, yeah. Thick with unspoken stuff. Reece feeling the party's effects. Zach clearly thinking about Ruben. John journaling. Ruben dealing with all these new confusing feelings about his kiss with Noel.
You see it at breakfast, too.
Definitely. Jayla and Reece have this new, quiet connection. Zach seems totally focused internally, probably on Ruben. The air is just different.
And then they go on a park outing. Supposed to be relaxing.
Supposed to be. But it turns into more conflict. Those same LA guys corner Reece in a quiet spot. It gets physical.
Oh, no. What does Zach do?
Zach sees it, jumps in immediately to protect Reece, gets into a fight. Serious stuff. He could get expelled.
Wow. That's huge loyalty, but risky.
Incredibly risky. Later, Reece finds Zach, who's obviously shaken up. They have this really vulnerable talk, share stories about being taunted before, for being different, for their backgrounds.
It must have bonded them even more.
For sure, a deeper understanding, knowing someone really has your back.
So Zeph might get kicked out. How did John and Ruben react?
They find out, and Ruben especially has this strong reaction. Feels like things will be unfinished if Zach leaves. Shows how much that connection, maybe even the group dynamic, already means to him.
And John, what does he do?
John steps up, uses his privilege, frankly, calls his dad, calls in a favor.
Pulls the Braxton card?
Exactly. Director Crane isn't happy, but Bradley Braxton's influence is too strong. She reluctantly agrees.
So Zach gets to stay. But it highlights those power dynamics, huh?
Big time. It's not just about talent. Connections matter. But Zach stays. The incident leaves a mark, though.
What's the immediate fallout? Emotionally.
Ruben is hugely relieved. He talks to John about it, and it opens up something deeper in Ruben. He starts asking these big questions about change, about not feeling free to be himself, real vulnerability.
And John's response?
Gentle support. Just offers to be there. It's a touching moment, shows their friendship deepening. But Ruben's clearly wrestling with his feelings for Zach, what the kiss with Noel meant. It's complicated.
So, heading into the final week, there must be a sense of time running out.
Definitely. An urgency. You see John's prayers getting longer, more introspective, like he's seeking guidance as this chapter closes. Reece and Jayla seem solid, comfortable.
And Zach and Ruben, still that unspoken tension.
Yeah. Zach catches Ruben looking at him, those little glances. It leads to this tentative but honest chat in the music room.
What do they talk about?
Ruben acknowledges Zach sticking up for him, which is big. They touch briefly on Noel. And Zach says something like, "I'm glad you have someone."
How does Ruben take that?
It clearly throws him. A conflicted reaction. Suggests Zach's comment, however well-intentioned, maybe didn't land quite right, given Ruben's own confusing feelings. And right then, Director Crane announces the final showcase. Big performance opportunity.
Ah, the showcase. That's the catalyst, right?
Totally. It pushes everything forward. And almost without discussion, John, Ruben, Reece, and Zach just, they're going to perform together.
An unspoken agreement.
Feels like it. Like a magnetic pull. They finally sit down to brainstorm.
And it's chaos.
Beautiful chaos. John wants acoustic, emotional. Reece wants fireworks, glitter. Zach's like, no glitter. Ruben suggests a medley. It's just them. Their personalities clashing and combining.
Who suggests the boy band medley?
Ruben, totally unexpected. Backstreet Boys, NSYNC. Maybe a bit nostalgic, a bit fun, but it's the idea that sticks, that sparks their concept.
And they start figuring out roles.
Yeah.
Even choreography.
Yeah. Developing the idea, finding their parts. Zach even reluctantly agrees to some choreography. You see the messy, exciting start of them becoming a group.
So as camp wraps up, any final moments?
A few key ones. Reece and Jayla have that serious talk. Long distance, can they make it work? They promise to try. Shows how strong that bond became.
What about Ruben and Noel?
Quieter, comfortable understanding, maybe moving more towards friendship. The text is subtle there.
And the four of them.
The book ends with this great image. John, Ruben, Reece, Zach, in the practice room. The decision to perform a Saturday just hangs there, solidified. And for Ruben especially, this feeling of rightness, like this is exactly where he's supposed to be.
That's a perfect ending for this part of the story. Hopeful.
It really is. So just to recap, we've seen these four guys, John, Reece, Ruben, Zach, come from totally different places, carrying all sorts of baggage and dreams.
They land at Son of Arts, have these awkward, challenging, but really important first connections. Fights, friendships, first kisses.
Exactly. And through all that, somehow this group Saturday starts to form, almost accidentally, but maybe inevitably. It shows how shared passion and just unexpected bonds can create something amazing.
Yeah, the real aha moments for me are seeing how those differences, industry kid, performer, image conscious one, quiet musician, actually created something fertile. They weren't
Yes.
malgré their differences, but maybe because of them.
Right. And their struggles, their vulnerability, the way they supported each other, even when it was messy. That's insightful stuff. It's not just about a band forming, it's about that human need for connection, for belonging.
Absolutely.
Which brings us to a final thought for you, the listener, to chew on. Looking back at all this, the connections, the individual paths, the dynamics starting to form, what do you think were the really crucial things that let these four very different people not just form a band, but stick together and achieve the kind of success the book hints at?
Yeah, and what tensions or unresolved feelings from these early days might hint at future problems for Saturday? What conflicts might still be brewing under the surface?
It's a great puzzle to think about. What made Saturday? Huh, Saturday. Fascinating stuff to consider as we wrap up this deep dive into their very beginnings. Thanks for